So my wife and I are high school sweethearts, and we live on the home place that my in-laws bought in 1986. Well, the adjacent ranch, we have fantasized for 30 years about buying it. And when the commercial egg laying operations were looking at buying it and building confined egg laying barns on it, my wife says, we just have to figure out a way, buy it and make it work. And so that's actually where we hatched the plan of short-term rentals, the wedding venue. And it's just it's just exploded from there. I mean, we waited, of course, until the interest rates are the highest that they've ever been in our lifetimes. But fortunately for us, the landowner agreed to carry enough of the note so we could qualify for an American Ag Credit agricultural loan, which was truly a blessing. But the only way we could come close to cash flowing that property would be to do what we're doing with the short-term rentals and the wedding venues, conferences. We actually have a family that used to own the ranch back in the 40s that is coming back to do a family reunion this summer. So that'll be really fun to be able to meet them in person. And then a lot of their family still lives locally. And they've done a whole bunch of historical research on the property. They have old photographs. So that'll be a lot of fun to be able to meet them and talk about their stories, listen to their stories about the way it looked when they owned it versus now, the way that it looks now.
So were there already existing structures on there for short-term rentals to host the wedding, or is that something else you had to invest in right away in addition to making that large purchase?
So we are very fortunate. There are already buildings. And in our county, there's some zoning restrictions that just really came into effect. So quite a few farms and ranches were already doing weddings, but they weren't in compliance with the new regulations. Whereas this property, a gentleman had bought it that was a land developer in the early 90s, and then had built a new house in the 90s, and then he built a shop and built a hay barn and built a machine shed, a machine storage building. And so there are already existing structures. There's already 4 domestic water taps. There's a domestic water well. There are 2 separate septic systems, one that services the house, one that services we call it the foreman's quarters. So it's like an apartment that's built in the shop. And so it was well suited to do what we were wanting to do. We've just been doing a lot of updates like lights and ceiling fans, and in the equipment building, which is a 40 by 60 pole barn, steel sided and roofed metal building, we milled rough cut lumber and lined the inside of it with rough cut lumber. So it looks like the inside of a wood barn. So it's super attractive. I've actually been hanging ceiling fans and chandeliers in it this last week. And so it's really coming along. So we were very fortunate. There are already buildings. They just needed some updates.
So what would you say was your biggest challenge that first year when you got the property and were like, okay, we want to start booking weddings?
Yeah. And so we purchased it in September of 23. And then it took us a couple of months to even just clean up, paint, and update the ranch house to start listing it for Airbnb or short-term rentals. So, I mean, paying that mortgage for those months with no income was a real eye-opening experience. And that can be our hang up because we're not quite cash flowing it, but because it came with an additional 160 acres of hay ground and pasture ground, it complements our direct-to-consumer beef business very well. So we're able to raise more of our own hay on our own owned acres and pasture more cattle. And so the beef business has been supplementing the short-term rental and wedding venue. We're projected for 2025 to come really close to generating enough revenue through short-term rentals and weddings, conferences, and the reunions to actually pay the mortgage for the year. Which if you look at startup businesses, most of them aren't projected to even break even for 3 years. So for us to be able to do that on year 2 would be pretty exceptional. And that's kind of our goal. But really just you look at the dollars and cents of it. I mean, ag is tough anyways. The margins are pretty small, but in this business, there are no subsidized stopgaps. It's not like I can do income insurance or crop yield insurance or livestock insurance. It is like you have to make it work or else the bank gets it back. And so that's one thing that's always pushing up against us. But we had an open house, I guess it's been about 3 weeks ago, and we had a tremendous turnout. We had over 100 people. Some of them drove, 100 plus miles to come and see our venue, see what we were doing. And many of those were other farmers and ranchers who are looking to do the same thing, and they just were trying to figure out how to do it themselves. So we got to have those conversations to help other producers as well.
Folks, if you want the full scoop on this conversation, be sure to listen to the full podcast episode on casual cattle conversations. You can find that on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and frankly, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. With that, happy ranching, folks.